Welcome, everybody. Today's subject is all about the Mount Everest summit season, and it's based on a curated collection that David Weiss, a Nepal guidebook author, wrote. Usually we do a wrap-up on the Everest season in Nepal when it's over at the end of May. It usually includes obscure things from parachuting down, skiing down, youngest, oldest summiteers, etc. It's what David often calls the silly season in Nepal. This year, things have started early with a giant block of ice that fell above Camp 1, which blocked the way for mountaineers. It's just been cleared, but it cost the lives of Nepali Sherpas. The season will also likely be extended into June. Let's dive in and find out what's been going on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I mean, it really is anything but the usual silly season this time around. The sheer logistical circus, and it is a circus up there, has just violently collided with the actual changing geography of the mountain.
Right, because this isn't just a minor delay for, a few dozen folks roughing it in tents.
Oh, not at all. When you look at the raw data coming out of Nepal this spring, you realize this is a massive, highly pressurized, multi-million-dollar crisis.
Well, and to understand why a single block of ice is such a big deal, you really have to grasp the economic scale for Nepal. Like, we are talking about a literal billion rupee boom here.
Exactly. By late April, Nepal crossed that 1 billion rupee mark in just mountaineering royalties.
Wow.
Yeah, which translates to over 6.9 million US dollars. The Department of Tourism issued permits to 944 mountaineers.
Just for this spring.
Just this spring, you've got people flying from 76 different countries, and they're spread across 30 different peaks in the Himalayas.
That's just a massive influx of people. And the cost of admission is totally staggering. Yeah. Like, if you're a foreign climber, the permit fee for Everest alone just jumped to $15,000.
Right, and Everest completely dominates the season. Out of those 944 total climbers, 410 are attempting Everest.
So almost half.
Yeah, it breaks down to 313 male climbers and 97 female climbers. And those specific Everest permits, they're generating nearly 87% of the entire season's royalty income for the country.
That's wild. But there's also a big demographic shift in those numbers, too, right?
Yeah, there really is. Chinese climbers are actually leading the pack this year. They have 98 permits on Everest. Then it's the U.S. with 49 and India with 46.
Wait, why such a massive jump in the Chinese contingent?
Well, it's entirely geopolitical. China closed the north side of Mount Everest, so the Tibet side for summiting this spring.
Oh, I see. So suddenly all those massive commercial operations that usually rely on the northern route, they have to just pack up and, squeeze into the southern route in Nepal?
Exactly. You are taking massive amounts of tents, oxygen tanks, dining arrays, and all the support staff, and you're dumping them into South Base Camp.
Which is already basically a sprawling, overcrowded temporary city on glacier.
Yeah. It's incredibly dense, and all of that localized pressure, all of those people were entirely stalled by this one hanging serac.
Right, let's talk about that. For those who don't know, a serac is essentially just a massive chunk of glacial ice, right?
Yeah, exactly. And this particular one was 30 meters high, so about 100 feet, and it was hanging right over the critical path through the Khumbu Icefall, just under Camp 1.
I'm trying to wrap my head around this. Because I'm picturing throwing a multi-million-dollar, globally anticipated movie premiere, right? The wealthy guests are there, the global media is watching, but the red carpet is completely blocked by a 100-foot-tall collapsing skyscraper.
That is a terrifyingly accurate analogy.
And we hear about these Icefall Doctors, the team mobilized by the Sagarmatha Pollution Control Committee. But how do you actually engineer a path through a moving, melting 100-foot ice puzzle? You can't just pour concrete up there.
No, you definitely can't. I mean, to understand the Khumbu Icefall, you have to picture a frozen river of shattered ice tumbling over a steep cliff.
Jeez.
It's constantly moving, sometimes several feet a day. The ice is bending, snapping, splintering under its own weight.
And the Icefall Doctors are just navigating this.
Yeah, led this year by Chief Leader Eng Sarki Sherpa. They navigate these bottomless crevasses using just ropes and aluminum ladders. They started fixing the route back in mid-March, but when they hit this 100-foot hanging serac, they were totally blocked.
Because it's basically an anvil hanging by a fraying thread. Like, you can't build a fragile ladder path underneath an unstable cliff of ice. It could collapse and crush the team at any second.
Right, and you can't exactly dynamite it either, because that would trigger massive avalanches from the surrounding peaks.
Oh, what do they do?
Well, by late April, an aerial recon showed that about 60% of that hanging serac had finally collapsed on its own. But And this is a big, but two highly fragile chunks of ice were still remaining.
Oh, wow. So just a total standoff.
Exactly. Thousands of people stuck at base camp, staring up at chunks of ice, just waiting for gravity to do its job.
Which creates a terrifying domino effect for the rest of the season. You can't just wait indefinitely, right? The mountain dictates the schedule, and you're racing against the summer monsoon.
That's the real problem. Favorable summit weather generally ends in May. Normally, this route up to Camp 2 is open by the first week of April.
So they were already way behind.
Weeks behind. And that early opening is critical so climbers can begin their acclimatization rotations.
Right, where you go up to thin air, come back down, go back up, so your blood actually adapts.
Yeah, it literally adapts to carry less oxygen.
Yeah.
But because of this standoff, nobody could start that process.
So you get this massive bottleneck. And we saw Nepali climber and photographer Purnima Shrestha, who was aiming for her 6th summit. By the way, she started warning everyone about impending traffic jams. And, a traffic jam on the highway is annoying, but a traffic jam at 8,000 meters in the death zone, that's fatal.
It is. Instead of staggering climbs over a 2-month window, you are forcing 400-plus climbers and their guides into a tiny, localized weather window.
Like 2019, right, when those photos went viral of that massive queue on the summit ridge.
Exactly like 2019. When you are waiting in line in the death zone, your body is actively dying. Your cells are suffocating.
Yeah.
Every minute you stand still, you're burning through finite bottled oxygen. If you run out while waiting for someone to cross a ladder, you likely aren't making it down.
And the panic over this got so bad that the Department of Tourism and the Expedition Operators Association Nepal, the EOAN, they started floating some pretty radical ideas.
Oh, extremely radical. They were seriously discussing using helicopters to airlift the rope-fixing teams and all their heavy logistics directly to Camp 2.
Just bypassing the icefall completely.
Completely. And the EOAN even requested permission to extend the climbing season into mid-June.
Pushing right into the warmer, highly volatile monsoon weather.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to push back on the logic of these operators here. If the ice is already this unstable, and we know the tragic history of avalanches in this region, aren't desperate measures like airlifting teams or extending the season just trading a logistical problem for a massive safety risk?
Well, yes. But it highlights the brutal reality of sunk costs in Himalayan commercial climbing.
Right. The money.
The money. These operators have millions of dollars on the line. The clients have paid small fortunes and trained for years. Delays equal catastrophic financial losses.
So they just push through.
Yeah, that sheer economic pressure drove the EOAN to form a joint 20-person emergency team just to try and force a route open.
And the timing of all this pressure was so grim. It all came to a head right around April 25th, which, for you listening, that date carries an immense weight in Nepal. It's the anniversary of the 2015 earthquake.
Right. That earthquake triggered a massive avalanche from Pumori that swept straight through Everest Base Camp.
Killing 22 people.
Yeah, the deadliest single disaster in the mountain's history. So while operators are pushing to rush the mountain with helicopters, that anniversary is just this stark reminder that when you try to outsmart the mountain's geography, the mountain always wins.
Always. But, because of all this gridlock on Everest, the pressure actually spilled over onto the surrounding peaks. Climbers ended up experiencing some incredible triumphs and absolute nightmares right next door.
Yeah, with Everest stalled, the global spotlight shifted. So Numal Purja, known to a lot of people as Nims, he just recorded his 50th true ascent of an 8,000-meter peak on Dhaulagiri.
Which is a world record, right?
A world record. And then you have Sanu Sherpa. He was part of the Pioneer Adventures team that summited Dhaulagiri after battling relentless storms for 10 days.
10 days in a storm at that altitude.
Yeah, and that summit brings his tally to 12 of the 14 8,000ers climbed 3 times.
Wait, 3 times each?
3 times each. He only has Cho, Oyu, and Shishapangma left.
I mean, think about what that does to a human body. The cellular degradation, the toll on your lungs and joints. Most people spend a lifetime training to survive the death zone just once. And he's literally making a career out of repeatedly subjecting his body to an environment with 1/3 of the oxygen at sea level.
The endurance is just beyond comprehension. But speaking of redefining physical limits, the human story that really rewrites the mechanics of a climb is Rustam Nabiev.
Oh, yes. The former Russian paratrooper.
Right. He lost both of his legs back in 2015 when a military barracks collapsed. And on April 22nd, he reached the summit of Mera Peak, which is almost 6,500 meters.
And just to be clear, Ascending 6,500 meters without legs means you aren't just walking up a steep incline. You are dragging your entire core through deep snow.
Yeah, fighting immense friction.
Right, you're pulling your entire body weight up the mountain using specialized ice axes and pure upper body strength. It completely rewrites the physical demands of mountaineering.
And this isn't even his first major peak. He summited Manaslu in 2021, which is over 8,100 meters. Now he's preparing for Everest. It's just a staggering display of resilience.
But for every triumph like that, the margin for error is so razor thin. We saw exactly what happens when things go wrong on Annapurna.
Yeah, the rescue of Dawa Nurbu Sherpa basically defies all odds of high-altitude medicine.
He went missing above 7,700 meters.
Yeah, well into the death zone. After summiting Annapurna with a Swiss guide, he was out of contact and exposed to the elements for over 48 hours.
I mean, surviving 48 hours above 7,700 meters without a constant supply of oxygen and shelter, that's basically a medical impossibility. The human body shuts down from hypoxia or hypothermia way before that.
It really is a miracle. Finding him took a total masterclass in high-altitude logistics. 8K expeditions managed an aerial search and somehow located him near Camp 4.
But finding him is just half the battle.
Exactly. Getting him down is another. A guide named Ashok Lama was actually dropped by helicopter at Camp 3.
Which is incredibly dangerous.
Yeah.
Dropping a rescuer on a long line at that altitude, the air is so thin that helicopter rotors struggle to generate any lift.
It's incredibly risky. But Lama climbed up, reached Dawa, brought him back down to Camp 3, and then a Healy Everest pilot, Priya Adhikari, managed to airlift him out. Against all logic, Dawa survived with only minor frostbite.
Yeah, Pemba Sherpa, the chairman of 8K Expeditions, pointed out that this rescue operation cost way more than what standard insurance covers.
Right, because the maximum insurance coverage for a high-altitude rescue for these local guides is capped at just $10,000. Just $10,000. And Pemba issued a stark warning. He explicitly said that if a smaller expedition company had been running that climb, a company without the deep pockets to absorb the extra flight time, they would have had no choice but to leave him up there to die.
That is chilling.
He's demanding the cap be raised to at least $30,000.
Because it's a glaring, really uncomfortable contradiction. I mean, we just talked about a billion rupee season. Foreign climbers are paying $15,000 just for the piece of paper that allows them to step foot on the mountain.
Right.
Yet the insurance cap for a life-saving rescue for the local guide, the guy actually fixing the ropes and keeping the client alive, is only 10 grand. The economics of survival are totally broken.
It exposes a massive disparity at the heart of this industry. The staggering wealth fails to protect the very people executing the climbs. The Sherpa community takes on the highest physical risks. They navigate the icefall first, they carry the heavy oxygen, they do the rescues, but their financial safety net is woefully inadequate.
And what's truly terrifying is that this systemic failure, this broken economic model, isn't isolated to 8,000 meters. The lack of infrastructure investment is trickling all the way down the mountain.
Yeah, this is the silent threat that rarely makes international headlines. Everyone focuses on collapsing Seracs and summit traffic jams, but a massive existential danger is swelling in the valleys below.
Right. We have to talk about Imja Lake. For anyone listening who isn't familiar with glacial geography, this is a massive glacial lake sitting in the Solo Khumbu region at over 5,000 meters above sea level.
Yeah, and back in 2016, it had grown so dangerously large that a $3.5 million project was initiated to drain it by about 3.5 meters.
Just to prevent a catastrophic flood.
Exactly. Because to understand why these lakes are so dangerous, you have to look at how they're contained. Glacial lakes are formed by melting ice, and the water is held back by these natural, highly unstable dams made of loose rock and dirt called moraines.
So they aren't solid bedrock at all.
No, not at all. If that moraine collapses, it unleashes a glacial lake outburst flood, or a GLOF.
Wow.
And this isn't just a wave of water. It's a violent slurry of boulders, mud, and ice. It acts like liquid concrete, wiping out everything downstream in minutes.
This draining Imja Lake and putting in an early warning flood system was supposed to be a triumph of disaster prevention.
Supposed to be. But the current state of that system is terrifying. It's completely broken down.
Wow.
Locals are reporting that the siren towers designed to warn the villages are rusting and leaning over. The batteries for the alarms have actually been stolen.
You're kidding.
I wish I was. And the hydromet station, which is supposed to transmit satellite data about the lake's water level directly to Kathmandu, is incredibly unreliable.
And the stakes here cannot be overstated. Due to global warming, ice loss rates have doubled in the Hindu Kush Himalaya region since the year 2000.
The mountains are becoming fundamentally less stable from the bedrock up. In the Everest region alone, there have been at least 5 glacial lake floods in the last 5 decades.
5 floods. And if the moraine at Imja Lake bursts today, you have 6 downstream villages and roughly 60,000 annual tourists right in the direct path of destruction.
Yet the bureaucratic response to this ticking time bomb is basically total paralysis. The Department of Hydrology and Meteorology openly admits they have no budget allocated for basic maintenance.
So they can't even guarantee the sirens will sound.
No guarantee at all. You have local leaders like Jangbu Sherpa who travel all the way to Kathmandu just to beg for help. They just ask the government to repair the existing system, and they are completely ignored.
Meanwhile, you have organizations like the United Nations Development Program receiving another $36 million grant to drain 4 other lakes.
Right. It's a fundamental failure of foresight in how disaster funding works globally. There's massive money for shiny new projects, but almost zero funding for the unglamorous maintenance of the infrastructure already built to save lives.
It's literally like installing a $1 million state-of-the-art smoke detector in a crowded, locked theater, but refusing to buy the $5 battery for it when it starts beeping. Why is this being ignored?
It is the tragic irony of the entire region. The Sherpa community, which physically carries the weight of this billion-rupee commercial climbing industry, is left to live with the daily fear of a catastrophic flood wiping out their homes. Millions of dollars flow past their villages on the way up, but they are left unprotected from what's coming down.
And it all ties back together. The mountain is degrading from the top down. The rising temperatures causing those unstable 100-foot seracs in the icefall. Those same temperatures are swelling the glacial lakes, threatening the valleys.
It's all one interconnected, fragile system. We try to schedule the mountain, engineer paths through it with ladders, ensure the people climbing it, but in the end, gravity and a changing climate will always dictate the terms.
Which leaves you with a lingering thought as we watch this extended season unfold. As climbers seek personal glory and Nepal reaps billion-rupee royalties, the foundation of the mountains, both the melting ice falls above and the swelling glacial lakes below, are becoming critically unstable. Is the current commercial model of Himalayan mountaineering actually sustainable, or are we all just waiting for the ice to finally break? Be sure to check out David Wei's The Longest Way Home Nepal travel website and guidebooks, which are the most updated guidebooks in the world today, including his Trekking in Nepal guidebook.